ahead and hit record here. And I'm going to give you the Reader's Digest version. So, if you guys don't know me, my name is Ryan Pennington. All right. So I'm a captain paramedic from Charleston, West Virginia. And you guys are reaching out because you had a hoarder fire in which you guys were tasked with primarily the primary search, right?
Correct.
All right. So what you guys described to me is pretty much something that I'm could have almost told you how it went, as far as is identifying it and then what's going to slow your pace during it, because it's been repeatable so many times over the last 7 years of talking to people. And first and foremost, anybody who asks about this stuff is that we need to understand that hoarding is not always all inclusive. There are actually levels to it. And what do I mean by levels to it is when someone says a hoarder fire or heavy content, which is the preferred language terminology that I recommend, is that there's different levels to it. So what I'm going to show you here is I'm going to show you my screen, and let me know if we're lagging at all. And first and foremost, this comes with an assessment phase. And if you're doing a primary search, or if you're doing a push inside of a heavy content, you've got to start with the simple cues and clues. So this is the fire that started my research. And this was a fire that actually I was not on, but my department ran when there was a confirmed victim trap. Our normal staffing is we sent 4 engines, a truck, at the time 2 rescues, 2 ambulances, and a battalion chief and a duty supervisor. They all went on this. It took us 31 minutes to get this guy out of this house. And the reason why is the clutter disoriented 2 firefighters, ran out of air. We had 1 firefighter fall through the basement through the first floor into the basement because of extended burn time. We had a captain give up his face piece. And the reason why is because of hoarding conditions. Now, if you take the time to really assess the situation from outside, you're going to start seeing some subtle cues and clues. So as I walk around the house here, what do you notice about this particular occupancy that should stand out immediately?
Overgrown.
So why is it overgrown?
Potentially because they're trying to conceal things, either that or
they either can't perform the maintenance, they can't
right.
afford to have the maintenance performed for them, or you're dead spot on, it's concealment. Time after time after time after time, when these case studies come up, concealment is a huge issue with heavy content fires. Now, if you're in a municipal district, that changes things, because the building codes says that you can't clutter in the front yard. It doesn't say anything about the backyards. So when you're doing your assessment, they all don't look like this. I mean, this one's easy to spot, right? And
right.
The funny thing about it is all my exterior pictures have one common thing in every single picture. And the guys from Missouri pointed it out, and it's a blue tarp. Why is there a blue tarp in the front yard?
Could be a number of different things, honest.
But they're covering up contents from keeping it from getting wet, most likely, right? Why is there contents in the front yard? Because the house is full. People who are afflicted with compulsive hoarding disorder fill containers. Once that container is full, they create another container. Then they create another container. Then they create another container. 2 common places where the collections of belongings start is attics and basements. Attics and basements is most likely the 2 places of a house that's concealed, or that's where the cluttering starts at, right? So you need to understand that most likely attics and basements, if you have basements in your district, are the places where they start. The last 2, now this is commonly, the only 2 the words I don't ever use is always and never, except for I'm always going to be fat if I never go exercise. But that's it. So this is not always or never. This is up for you to do for your assessment. The last 2 rooms commonly not full of contents when they get afflicted by this is kitchens and bathrooms. Kitchens and bathrooms are day-to-day areas of refuge. These are areas of your house you have to be able to live. So as you're making your way through these houses, kitchens and bathrooms, you need to keep that in mind that and when you send me the direct message, I ask you, did you hear a smoke alarm going off? Because if you heard a smoke alarm going off, probability that that person was alerted to it, and they would be either found in a path of egress or someplace where they can bail out, right? So keep in
Right.
mind that when you're assessing these things, not all heavy content or hoarder homes are the same. There's actually levels to them. This is what I would consider a level 1. These are some of the ones where I think could be the most dangerous, because you don't really pay close attention. You just know, well, that's just some household trash, right? So level 1 would be at knee level, right? Level 2
Mm-hmm.
is waist level. And that's when the pathways start. If you look really closely on your screen right here, there's a pathway leading to that person's computer gaming chair. That is huge for search. That is huge for search, because that is the path that the occupant travels. Now, here's the thing. It's up to us to find those paths. And I'm going to show you how to do that here shortly. But I want to kind of give you some context that some places are not designed to be searched, because as the pathways are established and the clutter level increases, that area is not an area that you need to be searching under live fire conditions. Period. Dot. Check the gate. Moving on. Because two things. Number one, the stability of the stack that you're looking at, it's unstable. Two, if the victim is on top of that stack, what are the chances that they're either A, burned, or B, have the air to survive? That is an unsubstantiated risk to take. That is beyond risk, right? Let alone that, do you think Mama or Papa that's afflicted will climb that mountain of debris in stressful situations such as a fire? The answer is, I won't say always or never, because there's always or never, but the likelihood of them being able to get up on that stack of debris is slim to none. Where are they going to be found at? They're going to be found in the pathway. Why? Because these people are so intimately familiar with their occupancy that they could navigate it blindfolded. And it's been proven time and time again. So that way, if you're going to search in these conditions, you're going to stay in the pathway. And I'm going to keep that, I'm going to keep that theme going. Now, the funny thing about it is this is a picture of not only one rescue, but 2 rescues in San Diego that happened by the First Due Engine Company. They made 2 successful rescues out of this particular house fire right here. And where they found them was in the pathway. And here's something that I found in a research burn that we did in 2015, is the survivability of a person in a deep-seated, smoldering / incipient stage fire in hoarding conditions. They are more likely to survive because they're shielded from the heat. They've got fresh air down low. So if they are in this pathway, the chances of them surviving the fire are greater than a normal house fire. And I'll show you a video to where I can prove my point, or at least illustrate my point in a few minutes. But when you're searching, if you come to this is a dead end street. This means you need to go find somewhere else to search, because even if they are on top of this stack of belongings, you're not going to be able to get it. And I'll show you how to sweep it here shortly. So level 1, up to your knee. Level 2, up to your waist. Level 3, up to your shoulder. Level 4, most rooms are completely unusable. These are storage containers only, and they do have a level 5. And that way there is no usable space. No usable space. Commonly in these types of conditions is you've got to work your way from the outside in, right? So that means you've got to have keen size up skills. Your size up for whether you're either searching or, all right, let's see. All right, here we go. Let's try this again. Can you guys see my screen yet?
It says it's working on sharing. There you go.
All right. So your assessment starts from the exterior, right? And I'm gonna play this video, and I'm gonna let you guys pay attention to this firefighter right here in the black right here. He's having a hard go of it, isn't he?
Yeah, it's kind of skipping, almost like it's a slideshow.
All right. Here's the thing. This is a video of a firefighter screwing up a stretch. This is a video of a firefighter yard breathing. This is a firefighter screwing up a fire scene, right? But guess what this firefighter,
Basically, yeah. I mean, from what little bit of it we could see, from what we could see, potentially, yes. I couldn't see the full video on it. It kind of skipped bits and pieces.
guess what this firefighter missed in his size up?
All the trash in the front, or the, not necessarily trash, but the heavy contents, heavy clutter of the yard.
Guess who this firefighter was?
You. It happens.
But the thing about it is it can't happen. It can't happen. We've got to slow down, use our tactical patience, and get our head out of our hind end when we're going. So the guy that goes around the world teaching hoarding fires goes into a hoarding fire and didn't even realize it. Why? It's because you're task fixated. I was task fixated and doing a shitty stretch. I'll tell you the story about why I did so poorly on this fire later. But sometimes you do strike out when you go to fires. This was my strikeout moment. But the thing about it is you need to start your assessment phases now, right? Places
Okay.
like this in your district, you should start being aware of, right? This is a balloon frame. This is a heavy content house. This is something that you can notify right now as you drive your district. You can start locating these things. They've got the clutter on the front porch. They've got the clutter in the side yard. They've got the clutter in the back porch. By the way, this is a house fire where 3 people were rescued. Working fire, 3 rescues from this house, and I will show you again in a few minutes. So when you're assessing these from the outside, what are you looking for specifically in hoarding houses? Well, you're looking for points of entry and exit that the victim can easily access in and out. They may not be the front door. They may not be the front door. It may be a window. It may be a garage port. It might be a back door. Think of how these people access this on a daily basis, right? You need to get behind the privacy fences. You need to get behind the privacy fences and look for points of entry for this, right? What do you think's inside this house?
A lot of stuff. I'm gonna go with heavy contents for sure.
But washing machines and dryers. So
Yeah.
don't think that it's all common clutter. It's not all newspapers and garbage bags. Heck, they found one in Charlotte, North Carolina that had 2 Chevys that were taken apart and reassembled in the attic of a house. Right? So keep in mind, this stuff can be anywhere. So when you're doing your assessment, look for how the victims enter. Like in this particular house, if you see the front porch is so cluttered, they could not get in it. So don't try to go in it for search. Now we're talking about search. We're trying for victim location, right? So if the front door is blocked or locked, go find another way in, because Mama and Papa can't crawl over all this front yard clutter, right? Look for their point of entry. Particular this one. This one only had 1 point of entry or exit. That's where you're going to start your primary search. And if you look right there, if you guys see my arrow, probably not, right? It's over towards that little outbuilding. There's a pathway through the yard to the point of entry, right? So if you find the exterior clutter, it's even easier to locate them. All right, so this is a great one. This is a fantastic one. So this is from a mutual aid district, right? So what do you see here? You see concealment, you see privacy fences, you see front yard clutter, right? But if you look closely as you're driving past, the point of entry is actually around the Charlie side of it. And let me show you. It's probably going to skip, and I don't know, but let me show you what the best way to get a look at these is zooming in on them with Google Earth. All right, can you guys still see my screen?
Yes.
All right. Sorry to jump around like this, but I'm kind of giving you the Reader's Digest. And here's what I want to show you. So this is a Google Earth image of a heavy content house. As you zoom in, you can start to find your points of entry. If you look right along here, that's their entry pathway. So if you're going for search, that's where you want to start at, right? So use Google Earth images to locate these places and try to figure them out before the fire happens. Now, commonly, sometimes you can't see the clutter from the exterior. This is a fatal hoarding fire from Colorado. They didn't find it until once they got inside. So once you get inside is when you really need to start your assessment phase differently. And my question to you guys was did you have your thermal imaging cameras with you?
Yes.
Well, and you guys use MSA, correct?
No, we have a Draeger.
A Draeger, UCF 9000?
Yes. And I think we have the only difference in between a couple of the ones we have and the 9000s is the ability to record. I think the other ones are 8000s.
Did you guys pull the video from it? Did you guys pull the video from the hoarding fire?
We have not, but I have a helmet camera.
Oh, I'd like to see that video. I'd really like to take your helmet camera video and sync it up to the Draeger video.
I would have permission from the chiefs and whatnot to share that.
Totally understand. I have a chief too. All right. So now, once you get inside, how do you start your search? Well, I'm not going to talk about thermal imaging cameras because you guys have, in my opinion, the best one. Matter of fact, I even bought my own Draeger UCF 9000. I carry it in my pickup truck because I do believe it's the best. But when you're assessing for these places, you need to start finding this. Can you guys see that right there?
Yes.
So what is that? What do you reckon that is?
On the right side?
Probably your right, my left. Can you see my arrow moving around?
Yes.
That area right there, what is that?
Pathway.
Yes.
Why is it standing out? Because it's black. Why is it black? Because it's colder than the rest of the room. This is your path to search in heavy content, heavy clutter, whatever you want to call it. Because this is survivable space, this is maneuverable space, and this is your pathway. Now keep in mind, people ask me, Ryan, would you knock the stacks of stuff over? No, I would not. The only place that I recommend clearing debris is on stairwells, because cardboard box plus water on carpeted stairs turns into a slicky slide. But before you clear the stairwell, do your search on the landing, send someone to the top, and then push it all down into the side, because you don't want to cover up unannounced victims. But thermography with heavy contents is absolutely required. Your Draeger UCF 9000 has got some of the best picture resolution you'll ever find. You need to make sure that when you're in high sensitivity, high temp, low sense, that you understand this. This is your Draeger from a burn that we did. This is in high temp, low sense. Just keep in mind that when it gets hotter, your clarity goes away, right? So the key to finding and starting your search is, number one, find the point of entry that the victim uses. Number one, find the point of entry that the victim uses. Number two, take a search rope with you, a high heat rated search rope. If you don't have them, tell your chief to go buy them. We use RIT 9000 or 900 cord. I think it goes to 700 degrees, because nylon rope going over burning debris has a tendency to melt. So you want to use a high heat rated, and then start your search with an oriented fashion. Do you guys use the oriented search at all? Do you understand what I mean by an oriented search?
Where the tick firefighter, the officer stays oriented, and another firefighter or firefighters perform the search.
Correct. And that is the best way to do this, because it's easy to get disoriented in it. Number one, don't depend on your tick for orientation. I like saying you need to have 3 points of orientation. I call it the triple thread of orientation. Number one, a search rope. If you don't have a high heat rated search rope, drag a hose line with you, because it has a better burn through than a nylon rope. Number two, use your tick to scan for things that don't move. If you notice in this picture, there's a bookcase right here that sticks above the hoard. There's a door frame right there. Find the places of things in your room that does not move. Ceiling fans, can lights, like I have in my kitchen right here. Can lights don't move. So that way you've got to stay oriented to stuff that's above the level of the clutter. You guys understand what I'm saying like that? Find the things that if you scan, they don't move. that door, top of that door does not move. That archway does not move, and it normally sticks above the clutter. So when you're scanning with your tick, find those things that don't move, so that way the oriented firefighter can get reoriented if they get disoriented, right? So then we're starting our pathway search. As long as you stay in verbal communications, I'm fine. The problem with the clutter is if you go down this pathway, make a dog leg right, and you try to talk with your SUV, they're not going to hear you. You're going to be more muffled. You may actually need to go to your radio, even for point-to-point communications inside a room, because behind the clutter, it's so hard to hear you because it dampens the sound of it, right? So those are the things you need. Communication becomes more important and becomes more difficult. You may just need to switch to portable radios, even in just a basic room search, because the clutter, you get behind these stacks and the clutter muffles the sound. So then keep in mind, if you guys aren't aware of this, this is a picture from my Draeger. You know how great Draegers are. I love them, but this is moisture on the camera lens. I've had 4 people get into hoarder fires and say, Ryan, the tick was no good to me because it grayed out. Our Draegers don't gray out. They get moisture. So if you have moisture on your face piece, wipe your lens and your screen. A lot of folks don't understand that.
I know that that's something that I have not taken a class from Andy Starnes, but I've seen videos of him and seen Facebook comments from him that he says wipe the lens regularly, because if you get debris or moisture on the lens, it can really throw off what you're looking at.
And that's what that is. That's my Draeger UCF 9000, one of the best cameras on the market that has moisture on the lens. And when I looked at the video and I showed that to Andy, because he's like a great friend of mine, look how bad the picture was. I said, Andy, I think my Draeger's screwed up. He's like, no, Ryan, that's moisture. So if you don't see the normal clarity, clear it, right? Something else when you're searching without a hose line and heavy contents is scan the floor. This is a video from a hoarder fire in South Texas, and the firefighters burned their knees even on the hose line, because what they didn't realize was the hoarding or the clutter that was on the floor had been burning. So make sure to scan the floor as you go. As you can see here, I think this was a flare tick, and it was almost 300 degrees as they were crawling over it. So keep in mind when you're scanning, scan the floor, right? This is something that you would need to find out. And if you look really closely, I don't know how good this picture's showing up, but find the pathways is so freaking important. This was a commercial fire that I went to in I call it a commercial hoarding fire. This was a pawn shop fire. So if you've ever seen the top floor of a pawn shop, you know how freaking hoarded it is. And we found the fire with the Draeger UCF 9000, but look at the black. Can you see the black? And can you see the pathway probably to your left, my right? That's what you're looking for, is the pathway. You can see where the fire's at. I mean, there's the fire. You can see it's burning that back room.
It looks like is there also a path off to the right of the camera angle? Well,
yep, there's a pathway going both ways. So that way, and that's why thermography is so important in heavy content stuff. It's finding, because if you would go in there without a thermal imaging camera, you'd be right-hand search, left-hand search, and guess where you'd go? Nowhere.
Yeah,
right?
And then if something falls over, your searches, your right-hand search, left-hand searches becomes absolutely nothing.
Correct. Here's something else that I found this is video that I pulled from my Draeger. Look up, and you can see the rafters through the drywall. So that was a secondary means of orientation, because I knew that the rafters were going from B side to D side, right? So I knew where I was. Also, those fluorescent lights up top, they don't move either. So I was quite impressed with this is my volunteer company. We got in there really quick because we used the Draeger to scan for the pathway. We had secondary means of orientation, and so we went right down it and got after it. So, all right, so that's cool. All right, so this is a dead end street. If you guys can see that right there, this is a dead end street. This is a fire in a room that you can't get into because it's blocked with contents. So if you see something like this, Well, there's no pathway. And something that really stood out with this particular image is there's no dark in there. If you can see, there's no black, probably because the room's on fire. But if you see it down low, this room is blocked by cardboard and contents. This is a dead end street for your search.
Like an couple open cardboard boxes right in front of the camera and a door frame.
Go to the door, sleep above them, sleep below them. More than anything, look for something that looks out of place. And I know that sounds like an oxymoron. Look for something that's out of place. But a lot of times in these heavy content places, there'll be stacks. If there's a stack that's disturbed before you guys got there, that could be an image of somebody that's fallen over the stacks or what have you. So keep in mind that that's what you're doing, the secondary means of orientation. Here's the ones that scare me. These are the ones that scare me, and it's when they're a disorganized mess. So this one does not have a pathway. This one is when it becomes more complicated. Now, I'm a walking contradiction. I told you don't crawl over the stacks, right? Sometimes you're going to have to crawl over them. But this is a man.
In this actually, in a way, that hallway straight ahead is like the second half of the hallway. And I know we talked, I don't know if it was messenger or text when I was talking to you. You said don't crawl over the stuff. Just a little bit more background on the fire. I don't want to talk too much about it because it wasn't our district's fire, and I want to get, but the fire was knocked down when we got up to the house, so we were lucky in that sense. They're a really aggressive department, and they put a heck of a knock on it. And most of the fire was overhead in the attic. Some, I believe, had dropped down into the Hoard, but they had it knocked down pretty quick. If I am able to send you my helmet camera video, my camera actually picked up better visibility than we had. So I would call it light to moderate smoke conditions. When we got more than 10 to 15 feet apart, I would say we couldn't really see each other that well anymore at first, and then it cleared up as we went. If you watch my video, we can see each other the whole time, but it was a little bit lower visibility than that. But the tick was definitely a big help. We had the goat path, as you called it, about halfway down the hallway, and then when we hit that halfway point, we had to just like a mound of stuff to kind of crawl over, search the last two rooms on the end, and then turn around and make our way out. We had a door on the Charlie side at the end of the hallway and all the windows, and most of the windows in the rooms too, if we needed to bail out or take a victim out, we could have done so. Actually, early on, you can hear me say to him that if we find a victim in one of these rooms, we're going to have to take them out a window because we can't bring them back through this. But basically, we just had one, I call it hills and valleys. There was a little hill of stuff we just had to climb over to get to the last two rooms. But since it was in a hallway, I didn't feel that it was that unstable of a stack because there's two directions that it can't fall at that point. And it was more of a mound than a stack. So
And I will say there was a room that I entered to search that looks a lot like this picture, and I don't think you can see it anywhere in the video, but it's one of the bedrooms, and it looks a lot like this picture, but there's a mattress sitting on top of all that stuff. So you had to climb over stuff in the hall to get to the entrance to that room, and then you had to climb the mound to even get to the mattress, and there was evidence of people sleeping on that mattress. And so zero visibility, that would have been tough, you know.
But you guys said the biggest factor that I'm so glad I heard you say. What was the biggest factor in all this? And I don't have a problem with anything that you did because one thing happened before you got there.
Knockdown.
Yeah. Because I'm telling you, you guys go up on top of these mounds in an active fire situation, your face piece is going to look like Pinocchio. I can't tell you. I can tell you that it's happened in Ohio. I can tell you it's happened in Tennessee. I can tell you in Portland, Oregon, the guy's not a fireman anymore because he fell over the stacks.
Absolutely, because you're not staying low anymore. In a
Correct.
real, you stay low as long as you're low, you can stay underneath of a thermal layering to a point. But as soon as you hit the ground, you're not underneath of that anymore. So,
and that's going to be on a case by case basis. Listen, I'm not going to be in there with you, Ben. You guys made a call, and I love your reasoning about the hallway. That makes a lot of sense. But the only thing I would caution you to is man, I tell you, get that fire knocked first. That's just it. I mean, that's just it. Get a knock.
The way we operate and the way manpower is, especially in our district, it's almost not even a question. Unless I have a victim, a known location, and know that it's isolated from the fire, or I have somebody hanging out the window, I would almost always default to water on the fire first.
Yeah.
And I've heard people from a lot bigger departments say the same thing, that you can really get yourself into trouble trying to go for that rescue first, as opposed to getting water on the fire. And I know this, I'm going to credit Kyle Romagus with it, because he's the one I see say it all the time, but I'm sure it could have come from somewhere else first, is the line buys and holds real estate for the surge.
I like that. That's a good one.
And I'm a big fan of that. Water on the fire first, because then your searchable space doesn't keep getting smaller, and there's less chance of getting yourself in a sling trying to take the risk and go for the grab first.
Some of us have the luxury of doing both at the same time. I get spoiled so often when I go to work. I'm like, when I made my rescue, I didn't have to worry about the water on the fire because there was a company doing it.
So just a little bit of background on us, since this is recorded. So for anybody watching it, we're a 4-station district. We're about 70 square miles of mostly rural, and we've got four two-man engine companies.
Wow.
And then to the east, we've got mutual aid coming. That's 3 to 4 man companies. And a lot of times they bring an ambulance with 2 people, and that ambulance marries up with their pumper. So, and then to the west and to the south, we have anywhere between 2 and 4 man engine companies, depending on the mutual aid district.
It's real firefighting there.
It's mostly rural as well. There's a couple small towns surrounding us, but we're mostly rural. So you can have, and like last night, there was a structure fire going on in the neighboring district, and all of what would normally be your second due companies were on that fire. So the companies that you would be getting as your second due might be your third or fourth on a normal day.
God bless you. I'm glad I don't have to worry about that.
Well, it is what it is, and we're growing, and I'm glad to be a part of it. I enjoy it. So
you can't hide there.
Nope.
All right. The one thing I want to go kind of circle back to is stairwells. Cardboard plus water plus carpet equals slicky slide. So clear them off, clear underneath it before you shove the crap down. Clear off your stairwells. This is where I've seen people get in the biggest amount of stuff. If you find the disorganized clutter rooms, we don't teach anything but oriented search. That is all we teach. That is all we preach. That's all we do. If you don't do it and you get to a non-pathway room, we would just kind of divert back to, we're in the room, send them to the opposite wall, and then work back. Whichever your system is with the non-pathway room. But you guys will have to make the call. How hot is it? How bad is the smoke conditions? What's the likelihood of someone being in there? That's the big one you really need to consider. Is there really a likelihood of someone being inside that one? because just like you guys said with your mounds, there actually was a fellow living on top of this one. This was not a fire. This was a public service call. So, I mean, every time I try to say yes, always, or yes, never, there's somebody always breaks my chain of thing there. I will warn you that you might run into the oh my gods. So this was just south of the suburb of Chicago. Keep in mind that not everybody hoards normal things. This guy was hoarding mannequins, like the ones you have and put dresses on. So they declared an MCI.
Yeah.
I don't know why they hung a perfectly good white woman out the window here, but keep in mind, animal hoarding in your area is what I'd be watching out for. So keep in mind that the old craps, because I don't know what I would do if I would have walked in and saw this.
Out there.
What's that?
Did you say animal hoarding? It kind of cut
Animal
out there.
hoarding. It's out
Yes,
there.
we were able to. Unfortunately, they didn't survive, but it's just between the two of us on our primary. We were able to bring out 4 cats.
Yeah. Just imagine if you show up and there's 400 cats, or if there's 400 snakes.
Supposedly there was a total in the teens, but I don't know how many of them ended up getting brought out.
Yeah.
I don't mean to kind of laugh there. It's more of I'm an animal person, so it's just kind of
I never thought I'd be a cat person. Somehow I've got 2 of them now.
yeah. I used to have one. I'm definitely a dog person now, though. I love my beagle.
Yeah. Oh, those are loud. All right, real quick. Navigation through the pathways. This is a great video from my buddy Chad Zofrinus from down in the Charlotte, North Carolina area. He's assigned to a truck company down south. They had a hoarding fire with a rescue, and this is how he mitigated the stacks. Keep in mind, he's a really fit guy, so he's not like me. He's not kind of chubby, but this is how he kind of demonstrated how they got through the pathways. Kept his center of gravity low. He did use the stacks for kind of support. He did have a search rope with him, but this is kind of mitigating through the pathways. They did find some burn throughs, so he was actually he kept sounding the floor the whole time. The thing I would caution you for sounding the floor is if you hit a stack of clothing, it's not going to give you a whole big thump. So just keep in mind that even though you're sounding it along the way, you may not get the kind of thump that you're used to hearing. Something else that you need to be mindful of is you might need to breach or break your way in. Let me see if I can let this play. So this is a simulated fire attack here that we did in a mutual aid district. If you find a room that you think that you have a high probability, that's not even a word. If you think there may be someone in there, don't be afraid to breach or break your way through. Don't be afraid to breach or break. If it's lath and plaster, it's going to be harder. But if it's drywall, you can get through there. I really recommend this for water application. So you can see them putting the nozzle through here. So this would be like a severely cluttered room that you can't get in to put the fire out, but you have a less cluttered room on the other side. Don't let drywall and sheetrock and lath and plaster stop you through this process. So as you're searching.
New York did that recently too. They busted through from a neighboring apartment. It's the one they kind of got in trouble on with the security camera video, which was unfortunate for them, but I think they came through.
Yep. I think it was Rescue 3. It was in the Bronx, the borough of the Bronx.
I can't remember 100%. I remember hearing the part about the heavy content conditions, and they breached through from a neighboring room or a neighboring apartment, which
so now this is something
that in the back of your mind, but it's the theory of recency, so to speak. When was the last time you thought about it, and is it gonna pop into the forefront of your mind when you need it?
Keep in mind that inside these places you can't control air tracks because you can't shut doors. Don't be afraid to take a door from a less cluttered area and drag it to block a more cluttered area. So here's my good buddy Jim Walsh he runs Vent Enter, used to run Vent Enter Search. And here's an example of a truck company needing to control the flow path, air track, whatever buzzword you want to use. So don't be afraid to take a door from a bathroom. And are you going to get complete coverage of the other door? No. But this is going to buy you some time, especially in cluttered conditions. Especially in cluttered conditions. So don't be afraid to take a door and put it into another hole. Is this going to be harder in clutter? Yes. It's going to be immensely harder. Do me a favor. When you pop it, pop the bottom hinge first, the middle hinge second, and take the top end first or last, because if not, it has a tendency to fall on top of you or it falls down inside the hoard. So if you're popping doors for air track management, use that last hinge last. Or if you're progressive enough, don't be afraid to take your Scooby-Doo shower curtain with you. People make fun of me, but by God, these things work. Now, I do want to share this. So we're going to go back to this house. And you asked me about Vent Enter Search, right? So
yeah, my question on that is, was if anybody really defaults to VES when they identify hoarding conditions, especially if you have an attack crew in there and you don't want to be on top of each other?
with one caveat, and we talked about this in the DMs, you cannot shut the interior door. You need to automatically assume that you cannot close that door. How can you confirm that? Is by scanning it with the tick and look and see if the door's in the pathway or not. Scan it with your dragger and see. This one, they were unable to isolate. This was a real fire. This was a real Vent Enter Search. And this was a real bad situation. So the lieutenant that was riding on the truck company just outside the suburb of DC, they had 3 victims. They'd already rescued 2. They were looking for the 3rd. He made the call to go inside this bedroom. This is a bedroom that he searched. First thing I said was, what the holy flip were you doing inside that bedroom? He said, Ryan, without a doubt, if the person would have been down inside the pathway, there's a pathway right beside that bed, and there's a pathway kind of leading to the door. If the victim was in the pathway, it was completely survivable. Right?
It appears like there used to be a pathway and maybe the stuff fell over where that blue tote's laying.
Yep. So now my question was, how did you keep the fire? Because it's obvious it's been on fire. Look at it. It's toasted. How did you keep the fire without being able to isolate? He had his bucket, which is they call the jump seat. They call it the bucket firefighter. Pull up the 1 3/4, put it on a straight stream, and right over here to my right, maybe your left, they put it into the doorway. He went under the stream of water, did his search, and got out. Clangers is what I say. And if you know what I mean by clangers, that when he walks, they clang, clang, clang. I don't know if I have enough guts to do this or not, but this was a remarkable, remarkable, remarkable experience. He said it worked to a T.
We've never had the opportunity to do it, but with the two-man engine company, the way we run, we have discussed doing that before. If we have a known victim location,
known, yes.
And by that, what we've discussed amongst ourselves is, if we're getting a report of a victim and I ask people on scene where are they and some details about them, if they're an invalid or it's basically somebody that's immobile, because if they're mobile, they might not be where you're told they're at. But if we have an invalid or a baby,
it's so funny you say that, because guess what this lady was? Confined to a wheelchair.
But she could still move. She could still potentially not be where they're telling you.
She started the fire on accident. It was a cooking fire. So when they got done with the Vent Enter Search,
oh boy,
and they were 31 minutes into the fire. 31 minutes into the fire. They went back and said, hey, she's bound to a wheelchair. They stuck their head inside this downstairs window and heard her moaning. She was inside right there by that power meter box. She was right there, and she lived for 31 minutes in the room of origin of the fire and survived.
It's amazing, some of these stories that you hear about the conditions people survive. I don't even remember where it's at, but there was that story about the they it's a picture it's on Facebook all the time, and it's fire blowing out a window, and it says a victim's being rescued from this room as the picture was taken. It's amazing some of the conditions you find out that people survived. So,
all right, final thing I want to go for is, if you're doing a search, don't be afraid to make yourself an entry point. Hoarding fires are always best if you attack them from the sides. So find the point of entry that they use, right? Let's just say this person's, and this is just a picture that I kind of took just because. All right, I want to send you inside this room for a search. Number one, take the window, right? How would you feel more comfortable real quick? Well, you get your steel chainsaw, 1, 2, 3, boom. Two things can happen. Number one, you can find the pathway from here, if not the pathway that stacks. You can also look for structural stability. You can also look for the presence of a floor. Few things about doing the drop down. Clear behind the wall before you do it. If the guys in Shepherdstown or Charlestown would have not cleared behind the wall when they buried their chainsaw in, guess what they'd have done?
Ran it right into the victim.
Yes. So they actually had to clear. They could not drop the window seal here because she was laying there. So clear behind the seal before you do your drop down. Something else is, don't bury your chainsaw all the way in there, because if it gets wadded up inside the contents, it'll blow the chainsaw up. So if you have a rotary saw, choose a rotary. If you have a chainsaw, don't put it so far in, because the contents will jam it up. I cannot tell you how effective this procedure works. And if it's not lagging, maybe you guys can see that this is one that we did. So they take the window, and then they're going to drop the saw in there, and they're going to drop the seal here. But I kind of jammed them up. I put a bunch of encyclopedias where I thought the bar would go, and the saw just quit running. So keep in mind that don't bury your saw blade inside there when you're dropping these window seals down.
Okay.
All right, guys. Well, that's like a Reader's Digest version. Patient removal is something that you're just going to have to gut it out. I mean, really, there is no rhyme or reason. There's no secrets. I don't teach webbing. I don't teach handles. I don't teach products. I teach grit and guts, and just keep them in the pathways. There really isn't no proven method for victim removal. Just like you said on that Bronx video, you're just going to have to use a set of clangers on that one.
I have one.
Real quick, I'm sorry. Keep in mind that heavy contents does mean it's heavy. This was a basement fire with confirmed entrapment. They had a complete and total floor collapse within the first 5 minutes upon arrival. Check basements, period. Because if they were going for a rescue, and if it wasn't for fire conditions pushing them out, there would have been firefighters laying on top of this pile of stuff. They had a complete and total collapse of the first floor all at one time. All right, I'll shut up now. Sorry about that.
No, it's fine. We appreciate it.
Yeah. Just really quick. I can't really speak for places with better manpower than we have, because this is what I know. But when you have limited manpower, I think it would really behoove you to consider a second alarm as soon as you identify that there is hoarder conditions. Because
I teach that to the big cities.
doing a primary on that size of house typically would have been super fast. It would have been perfect. But because of the conditions, it was really tough for just the two of us, and we could have used 2 more search teams.
We made
and
it.
some. Yep.
This hallway was probably less than 20 feet, maybe. Well, it might have been more, but we searched. There was a bathroom and a bedroom was the first two rooms that we came to, and immediately after that, I asked the deputy chief that we were working under if they could have another crew search the other half of the house going the other way from the way we went in, because I could tell very early on that it wasn't gonna go fast at all. And if there was a victim waiting on us, I didn't want them to have to wait that long. If we could move fast, I would just, we can get in, get out, go back. But that was one of my big questions is how
extra staffing, and someone in charge of the search for make sure that you coordinate what has been searched and hasn't. They're my two biggest takeaways from that, because that's what happened in Charlestown. That's what's happened in Knoxville. That's what's happened in Pittsburgh, is there's found areas that have been unaccounted for or duplicated, if that makes any sense.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And we were trying to communicate it. And I would say communication across the board was definitely something on going forward. My communication with him, communication between us and outside, we communicated amongst each other quite a bit, and there's definitely some good points that we took away from it. But the oriented search, like you talked about, is essentially what we were doing without actually saying it.
Right.
I was going down the hallway with the tick. I'd stick my head in a room with a tick, maybe go a little bit inside the door to get around corners and stuff because it's bumped out closet or whatever. And then he would go in and do the physical search. And
so
I would kind of.
That's the one thing that you guys need to be mindful of when searching with thermal imaging cameras, and especially in cluttered conditions. You're looking for faces, feet, and fingers. Faces, feet, and fingers, feet is what you're going to find in the tick, because the clutter kind of melds to it. You'll find noses, you'll find ears, and you'll see fingers. Is the three things that talking to Andy and a couple other people that's really showed up when searching for it. And if I could pull up this picture, I've got a picture of when I made my rescue, I saw his nose. I mean, it wasn't really a cluttered environment, but I saw his nose. His profile of his nose is what stood out when I scanned it. Any questions more, Ben? That's the Reader's Digest of 8 hours worth of hoarding content.
No, I thought I was just waiting on you to pull up the picture if that's what you were searching.
It won't load for some reason. I don't know why my internet, I bet it's because my daughter's downstairs gaming. Who would ever thought I'd have a gamer daughter?
There's worse things to be hooked on.
Oh, absolutely. I'm not mad at her at all. She can game all night like she does. I'm not mad at her at all. Here, I will show you this one if I can pull it up. So this is a heavy content through the eyes of a Draeger, UCF 9000.
And this is
mine.
A work or a training burn?
This is a hoarder fire, a real hoarder fire.
Deal.
Yep. No entrapment, just a working fire in a probably 1,800 square foot house. Clarity's good here. Low temp. Try to keep your Draeger as low as possible because you want it in high resolution, low temperature. But can you see the pathway?
Yeah, it goes.
Oh yeah.
Kind of works its way through that door frame and off to the left.
Yep.
And just to the right of that.
Right there.
Like there.
Yep. That's a pathway I'm looking at right there. Just keep in mind, see it. Let me see if I can slow it down here. This is what you're looking for. That is a wide pathway. Now, once you made that around that corner, it disappeared. It went nowhere. And then once the camera got hotter, the clarity went away.
Right. It goes into low sensitivity mode.
Yep. So here, I'm still in high sensitivity, low temperature. Now you're in low sensitivity, high temperature, and the clarity went away. That's what I knew, because I was on the truck company. I knew that we need to get out and do some spraying of the water because I didn't have a hose line with me.
That's another thing that even through just Facebook and YouTube, I picked up from Andy Starnes, is that if you notice your tick is in low sensitivity, that's an immediate clue of either worsening conditions or you just realize what kind of conditions you were really in.
Don't worry. I send all my videos to him and I get my butt chewed every time.
Oh, I mean, I know somebody like him that's as versed as he is, and like I said, I keep saying I don't know him personally. I haven't taken a class from him, but it's just obvious how in tune he is with that kind of stuff. But until you've done it a lot of times and done a lot of reps with it, it's all going to be automatic. Almost anything that's not automatic, hard to keep track of.
It's so funny because on that fire, I even got on the radio and I was like, hey, this is what we got. So, I mean, it does take repetition, and it just takes repetition. You're right. I mean, it just
almost has to be natural reaction for it to click. And that's unfortunate because things can change so quickly and one mistake can be life or death, but it does. And that's why training is so important.
Thanks for letting me review this with you guys. Hopefully got some pointers out of it.
Do you have any more questions? I know I probably
Thank
do.
you.
I'm just having trouble thinking of them right now.
That's all right. Hey, listen, call me, send messages, whatever. I mean, that's fine. I mean, I'll try to do another webinar where I do the whole thing. I mean, you guys got the Reader's Digest version, and there's a lot more to the process. Really, it really is about assessment. I mean, just like you say, communication and assessment is really the biggest two things. And then not being afraid to go through the drywall, not being afraid to put the fire out, not being afraid to use your piercing nozzle. I mean, there's some things that you can do with these places. It's just, I get tired of us having this one-way mentality. And listen, I love urban fire departments. I'm an FDNY fanatic. I mean, I got their app. I listen to them, talk to my buddies up there all the time. But you guys aren't FDNY. We are not FDNY. I mean, Bresnan distributor nozzles are made for a reason, because they work. Do they work in hoarding fires? Yes. Do they work in cellar fires? Yes. I mean, it's just we got to think outside the box. But thank you guys for having me. I'll record this and I'll put it up on YouTube as an unlisted video, and I'll send it to you if you want to show it to your chief. And then when I do another 4-hour one of these, I'll hit you guys up for it.
Our deputy chief was definitely interested in the link to this, as well as there was another guy that was going to listen in today, but maybe he got busy or something. I'm not sure what happened. Heard back from him. But so on the, just a couple quick questions on the VES side of things. If you can't control the door, obviously, like we talked about, you'd say having a line there and ready to put it over your head if needed.
I'm not going to teach you that. I'm going to say it worked. I don't know if that's a pretty significant risk.
Would you say then that let conditions drive tactics as far as whether or not you go VES over conditional or traditional search?
Yep, absolutely. And then if you can't control it, I'm not saying that it wouldn't work. I'm saying that that's going to be a significant amount of risk for you to take. It all depends on how much fire you have. Something else that I'm not against that's really weird is I'm not against you closing the window off with some sort of other means to kind of change the direction of the flow. Smoke curtain, take a door off, close up the window once you go in, because that way you've created a smoke plug. I mean, because if you're not in the flow path, you're fine. You're in a smoke plug. But
just so I'm clear too, I know this kind of varies, but when I say vent enter search too, I mean simultaneously as somebody's attacking the fire, not really
either way.
Yeah, not really a first due tactic for an uncontrolled fire, but say water's getting on the fire. What the deputy chief and I were talking earlier about, we entered through the same place that the initial line did.
Right.
We talked about how it could have been beneficial to us to either go room by room via the windows, or
the only thing that I want to encourage you for is go talk to somebody, the neighbors or somebody, to try to figure out whether they stay in those bedrooms or not. Because I've had so many people go into bedrooms where they don't sleep in them no more. There's only one way that you're ever going to know if they use the bedrooms for sure or not. And that's if you've been inside that house before. Does that make sense?
And the other thing, just our other thought was taking additional doors, and another thought was it's not a real common term or that I hear a lot around here, but softening the building.
Oh no!
So making sure we're getting inward swinging doors that are blocked by clutter, making sure that we're making both firefighter and victim removal egress point by getting those taken early as opposed to waiting a little bit longer into the fire.
Just to make sure that you've got a good handle on that fire, because every air track that you open is going to intensify it that much more.
Absolutely.
I would be very careful opening up. I tell them don't open it up ever. I mean, even if you've got entrapment, almost. I mean, if you had, just think of a dumpster fire with a roof. That's basically what you're doing. I mean, so let me show you something here real quick. This is more fire attack, but if you put water into an unventilated room, what happens? You create this mythical creature, right? That we're all looking for and we're all scared of.
Steam.
But if you keep that steam where it's designed to go, and it expands how many times?
Depends on the heat. 1,700 times 12.
All right. So what's the contraction rate of steam?
Not sure.
That's because we don't teach it in the American Fire Service, but it's 7,400 times to 1. So that means steam contracts faster, 7 times faster than it expands, right? So my whole point is, if you're fighting these fires, don't ventilate them, period. Because you've made this mythical creature called steam, and now you've let the steam do the work for you. And let me find the video here. So what we did was, in 2015, we burned a hoarding house for a research burn. The research burn was, my hypothesis was the pathways are survivable. We proved that without a doubt. Without a doubt, they're survivable. The pathways are searchable. We proved that without a doubt, 100% survivable. But what they told me was, if you add water in an unventilated area, it's going to be better for fighting these. And guess what they found out? They were right. So I'm trying to bring it up here. It's taking me a few seconds here because we're lagging. If you can put water and keep the air out of it and make the expansion rate to your advantage, it's going to go into the cracks and crevices. And I apologize about not being able to pull it up, but it's being a pain in the butt. So what we did basically is we used a piercing nozzle at 30 gallons per minute. A piercing nozzle, a European piercing nozzle at 30 gallons per minute versus a 150 gallon per minute American style nozzle. And their theory was the 30 gallons per minute with a closed window would beat 150 gallons per minute with an open window. Guess who won?
Closed window.
because all the water got vaporized into steam. The steam saturated the room, and the fire stayed out and went out faster. So don't be, here it is, here it is, here it is, here it is. All right, so this is, let me hit the share button. Sorry about that. It's been, man, it's COVID. I haven't taught in a while. You guys are making me dust the old hoarding slides out here. All right, so if this doesn't lag,
okay.
This is
good for all.
down here on the left is going to be a bunch of young firefighters at 150 gallons per minute. Here on the right is going to be a bunch of old chiefs at 30 gallons per minute. You can see about the thermography up here. We're well over 500 degrees coming out of this window. You can see from the thermography over here, we got almost 380 coming out of the window over here. We're going to let the young guys use a 150 gallon per minute nozzle. Over here, we're going to let the chiefs use a 30 gallon per minute nozzle. The difference being this window cannot be closed. So this window, once they open it, they can't take it. So this will be simulating taking a window and the inability to close it back off. So here in a few minutes, the young bucks come over at the 150 gallons a minute. But the chiefs use a ladder, take a small piercing nozzle and pierce through the side of the house. So they take the window. They're using 150 gallons per minute. They try to shut it, but they can't quite shut it. And the chiefs over here take a hammer and jam a European piercing nozzle through the side of the house. 30 gallons a minute versus 150 gallons a minute. Growing fire, fire basically goes out, completely out. So I'm not advocating nozzles at 30 gallons per minute. What I'm advocating for is adding water into a sealed container, creating the mythical creature called steam, and letting the steam help you in extinguishments of fires. Does this put the fire completely out? Does not. Does this allow you time, just like your young cohort said, call for the second alarm, get more people there, get ready to drop some window seals. Then when you're in place with multiple streams, you have a water supply established, then you can go in there and get it. I can't tell you how much I was like, and by the way, this is Andy Starnes' dad who brought this to us.
Well, we really appreciate it. Do you have any more?
Nope.
You got anything else? I'm
Does
sure.
that make any sense?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, it did.
The ventilation, it's not, the fire's not able to, it's not able to, if it can't get the gases out, if it can't get the steam out, it can't bring fresh air in. And I was actually talking to the, again, our deputy chief earlier. We had a conversation on the phone just before we got on the meeting here, and he was talking about the little in-house presentation that he wants to do, and researching the different, what like your heat release rate and things like that would be in hoarding conditions.
It's not that great. Why?
Right. Because
Why?
the vent, they're choked off. I'm gonna owe some laboratory somewhere a quarter here for saying this, but the vent profile is the same as any other house, unless you go bust all the windows out and open all the doors and cut the roof off of the house or burn the roof off of the house to where it can get as much air as it wants. It really can't burn much faster, because it can only bring in so much fresh air and get rid of so many gases that it's choking itself out.
A wise man once told me, if you really want to be a great fireman, take a huge tarp, cover the house when you get there. Don't let any air in and the fire will go out.
So water on the fire, unless I have a known victim location. When I mean known, that's no chance that they can move. And this is just, biggest thing here is because of our manpower.
Right.
Water on the fire, and then search, and then ventilation is my priorities, and I try to share that as much as possible. If we can do things, and like Dennis Gear says too, can you do things simultaneously? Do you have the manpower? or do you have to do it sequentially? And when you have to do it sequentially, when you don't have the luxury of doing it simultaneously, you have to prioritize. And unfortunately, fortunately, however you want to look at it, that's where we're at. And water on the fire almost always takes priority for me, with a few exceptions, obviously. But you can eliminate so much
of the problem.
I don't eliminate risk, but you can manage it by getting that fire under control and
hey man,
not
I'm
allow.
all with you. I'm on an engine company captain now. That's my goal. Yes.
Not
Forget the
allowing,
truck, the engine, baby.
not allowing that searchable space to get smaller. I forgot to add too, earlier when I was talking about a little bit of background about us. We're an all engine department. We don't have a truck. Everybody around us, every one of our mutual aid departments has a ladder, but we don't have one.
Well, you know what they say. If a truck company guy wants to see a real firefighter, they got to look down through the vent hole and say, "Hey, look, there's a real fireman down there." Hey guys, thank you for everything. I'll get this recorded up and posted back. Hopefully I gave you some tidbits. I've got about 8.5 more hours I could share with you. I guess I need to start dropping some more of this stuff out there, I guess.
We'd appreciate the opportunity to participate again, even if you want to have a bigger group get together or whatever like that. And definitely appreciate your time.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Well, my construction ever gets done around here, maybe I'll bring out the podcast again. It's been 3 months of construction. It's just.
It's a good time.
Yeah, said no one. All right, guys. I'm going to go play with my little baby, with my little grandbaby.
Yep.
See you.
See you later. Thank you so much.